So this is Welcome to Unwind. If you remember, Lev is at school, and the nurse finally realizes that he hasn't been able to phone anyone. And so she gives him her phone, thinking that he's going to phone his parents. But that's not what Lev does. He phones Pastor Dan, and we were in the middle of that conversation, and I left it there because I wanted to. Here we go. Hello, Pastor Dan. It's only a split second of dead air, then recognition. Dear God, Lev, is that you? Where are you? I don't know. Some school. Listen, you have to tell my parents to stop the police. I don't want them killed. Lev, slow down. Are you all right? They kidnapped me, but they didn't hurt me, so I don't want to hurt them. Tell my father to call off the police. I don't know what you're talking about. We never told the police. Lev is not expecting to hear this. You never what? Your parents were going to. They were going to make a whole big deal about it, but I convinced them not to. I convinced them that your being kidnapped was somehow God's will. Lev starts shaking his head like he can't shake the thought away. But, why would you do that? Now, Pastor Dan starts to sound desperate. Lev, listen to me. Listen to me carefully. No one else knows you're gone. As far as anyone knows, you've been tithed. And people don't ask questions about children who are tithed. Do you understand what I'm telling you? But I want to be tithed. I need to be. You have to call my parents and tell them. You have to get me to harvest camp. Now Pastor Dan gets angry. Don't make me do that. Please. Don't make me do that. It's as if he's fighting a battle, but somehow it's not Lev he's battling. This is so far from Lev's image of Pastor Dan. He can't believe it's the same person he's known all these years. It's like an imposter has stolen the pastor's voice, but none of his convictions. Remember, convictions are beliefs. Don't you see, Lev? You can save yourself. You can be anyone you want to be now. And all at once, the truth comes to Lev. Pastor Dan wasn't telling him to run away from the kidnapper that day. He was telling Lev to run away from him, from his parents, from his tithing. After all his sermons and lectures, after all that talk, year after year about Lev's holy duty, it's all been a sham. Lev was born to be tithed, and the man who convinced him this was a glorious and honorable fate doesn't believe it. Lev, are you there? He's there, but he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to answer this man who led him to a cliff only to turn away at the last minute. Now Lev's emotions spin like a wheel of fortune. One moment he's furious, the next he's relieved. One instant he's filled with terror so extreme he can smell it like acid in his nostrils. And the next, there's a spike of joy. Like what he used to feel when he swung away and heard the crack of a bat against a ball. He is that ball now, soaring away. His life has been like a ballpark, hasn't it? All lines and structure and rules, never changing. But now he's been hit over the wall into unknown territory. Lev, says Pastor Dan, you're scaring me. Talk to me. Goodbye. Oh, Lev takes a slow, deep breath and then says, goodbye, sir. Then he hangs up without another word. Lev sees the police cars arrive outside. Connor and Rissa will soon be caught, if they haven't been caught already. The nurse is no longer standing at the door. She's chiding the principal for how he's handling the situation. Why didn't you call that poor boy's parents? Why haven't you put the school in lockdown? Lev knows what he has to do. It's something wrong. It's something bad. But suddenly he doesn't care. He slips out of the office right behind the nurses and principal's backs and goes out into the hallway. It only takes a second to find what he's looking for. He reaches the little box on the wall. I am lost in every possible way. Then, feeling the coldness of the steel against his fingertips, he pulls the fire alarm. Chapter 16, Teacher. The fire alarm goes off during the teacher's prep period, and she silently curses the powers that be for their awful timing. FYI, I don't like this either. Perhaps she thinks if she can stay in her empty classroom until the false alarm, and it's always a false alarm, is dealt with. But then, what kind of example would she be setting if the students passing by looked in to see her sitting there? As she leaves the room, the hallways are already filling with students. Teachers try their best to keep them organized, but this is a high school. The organized lines of elementary and school fire drills are long gone, having been replaced by the brazen hormonal zigzags of kids whose bodies are too big for their own good. Then she sees something strange, something troubling. There are 2 policemen by the front office. They actually seem intimidated by the mob of kids flowing past them out the front doors of the school. But why policemen? Why not firemen? And how could they have gotten here so quickly? They must have been called before the fire alarm. But why? The last time there were policemen in the school, someone had called in a clapper threat. The school was evacuated, and no one knew why until after the fact. Turns out there was no clapper. The school was never in danger of being blown up. It was just some kid pulling a practical joke. Still, clapper threats are always taken seriously because you never know when the threat might be real. "Please, no pushing," she says to a student who bumps her elbow. "I'm sure we'll all make it outside." Good thing she didn't take her coffee. "Sorry, Miss Steinberg." As she passes the science lab, she notices the door ajar. Just to be thorough, she peeks in to make sure there are no stragglers or kids trying to avoid the mass exodus. The stone-top tables are bare, and the chairs are all in place. No one has been in the lab in this period. She reaches to pull the door closed, more out of habit than anything else, when she hears a sound that is wholly out of place in this room. A baby's cry. At first she thinks it might be coming from the student mother nursery, but the nursery is way down the hall. This cry definitely came from the lab. She hears the cry again, only this time it sounds oddly muffled and angrier. She knows that sound. Someone's trying to cover the baby's mouth to keep it from crying. These teen mothers always do that when they have their babies where they don't belong. They never seem to realize it only makes the baby cry louder. "Party's over," she calls out. "Come on, you and your baby have to leave with everyone else." But they don't come out. There's that muffled cry again, followed by some intense whispering that she can't quite make out. Annoyed, she steps into the lab and storms down the center aisle, looking left and right until she finds them crouched behind one of the lab tables. It's not just a girl and a baby. There's a boy there too. There's a look of desperation about them. The boy looks as if he might bolt, but the girl grabs him firmly with her free hand. It keeps him in place. The baby wails. The teacher might not know every name in the school, but she's fairly certain she knows every face. And she certainly knows all the student mothers. This isn't one of them. And the boy is completely unfamiliar too. The girl looks at her, eyes pleading, too frightened to speak. She just shakes her head. It's the boy who speaks. "If you turn us in, we'll die." At the thought, the girl holds the baby closer to her. Its cries lessen, but don't go away entirely. Clearly, these are the ones the police are looking for reasons she can only guess at. "Please," says the boy. "Please what?" the teacher thinks. "Please break the law? Please put myself and the school at risk?" But no, that's not it at all. What he's really saying is, please be a human being. With a life so full of rules and regiments, it's easy to forget that's what they are. She knows, she sees how often compassion takes a back seat to expediency. The word expediency means quickness. Then a voice from behind her, "Hannah!" She turns to see another teacher looking at the front, in from the door. He's a bit disheveled, having fought the raging rapids of kids still funneling out of the school. He obviously hears the baby's cries. How could he not? "Is everything all right?" he asks. "Yeah," says Hannah, with more calm in her voice than she usually feels. "I'm taking care of it." The other teacher nods and leaves, probably glad not to share the burden of whatever this crying baby situation is. Hannah now knows what the situation is, however, or at least she suspects. Kids only have this kind of desperation in their eyes when they know they're going to be unwound. She holds her hands out to the frightened kids. Come with me. The kids are so hesitant, so she says, if they're looking for you, they'll find you once the building's empty. You can't expect to hide here. If you want to get out, you have to leave with everyone else. Come on. I'll help you. Finally, they rise from behind the lab table, and she breathes a sigh of relief. She can tell they still don't trust her, but then why should they? Unwinds exist in the constant shadow of betrayal. Well, they don't need to trust her now. They just need to go with her. In this case, necessity is the mother of compliance, and that is just fine. So typically the expression is necessity is the mother of invention, which means that if you need something, you create it or you invent it. But this one is they're obeying because they will die otherwise. Don't tell me your names, she says to them. Don't tell me anything. So if they question me afterwards, I won't be lying when I say I don't know. There are still crowds of kids pushing past in the hall, heading towards the nearest exit. She steps out of the room, making sure the two kids and their baby are right behind her. She will help them, whoever they are. She will do her best to get them to safety. What kind of example will she be setting if she didn't? Okay, so your two response questions that you'll use on a piece of what's it called? One of those recipe cards. So recipe questions are, number one, so what's Hannah going to do? Make a prediction. And number two, so Lev is basically left with his world shattered. So what do you think Lev believes now? Is question number two. What do you think Lev believes now? And your job is to answer these questions in at least a couple sentences. And that is your unwind work. Peepgrass out.